Ladies and gentlemen, dreamers and doers, seekers of purpose and fulfillment, welcome to Passion on Purpose, the podcast that sets your soul on fire and ignites the spark within you. I'm your host, Steph Hilfer, and I'm beyond thrilled you're here. Passion on Purpose features leaders, experts, and sometimes me on center stage. We put the spotlight on visionaries, entrepreneurs, leaders, experts, and everyday heroes to share their journey of self-discovery, enthusiasm, and unwavering determination. We'll explore how they use their passion and purpose to fuel their brand. Alongside our leaders, we'll provide practical tips, actionable advice, and wisdom from our experts across various fields. So if you're ready to unleash your inner fire, shake off the doubts and insecurities, and pursue a life of All right, guys, we are back with another episode of the Passion on Purpose podcast. And if you're a regular listener, you know that I about fell off of this chair when I introduced our episode 97, because I was like, whoa, we're almost to triple digits and we are so close. Episode 99. This is episode 99. And I'm just so excited that we've been able to make the impact, talk with leaders, business owners who are truly living and breathing passion and purpose into not just their life, but into their business and through and for other people. It's just an honor to know that we're nearing that, I don't know why 100 matters. Number, I should be celebrating 113, that. That's the better celebration number, but it just feels like we're doing some really amazing things. And I hope as listeners, you all are just inspired and moved and been impacted by the amazing guests I've had on the show. And today is going to be no different. We have John Hernandez. He is the founder of the Alchemy Coaching Institute. And we're going to dive into what in the heck all that means in a little bit. But I'm so excited because there are a lot of parallels to my world. We don't always talk about my world very much on the show. But there are a lot of parallels that I'm excited to dive into how he focuses on them versus what I do with them. So yeah, we're going to do as we always do. And I prepared John off air just slightly. We're going to do as we always do, and we're going to dive in deep. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, John, what is your why?
The why is it came to me to give back. I've been doing these things for a long time in the business world, in the wine world, thus the maps behind me, in the music world, all these entrepreneurial things. And now I'm getting to that point in my life where legacy is important and to give back. So that's why I'm doing this and sharing this technology, I'll call it.
Yeah. Okay. Giving back. I love that you kind of tied this legacy piece in there, because I think people have a different idea. I used to work in the senior healthcare world, and legacy meant something completely different to the generation I was serving. So I just kind of want to tap into what does that mean for you?
That means that I'm part of, I stand on other shoulders that have come before me, a lot of them, back through millennia, so to speak, literally. And on my father and his generation, and my mother and their generations. And so I'm getting to that point in my life where I've done a lot of things, and now I want to give back to the next generation. That's part of what I do, and get them up to speed so that they're successful and that they can create the life that they want to have.
Yeah. And carry on that same legacy too, right?
Carry on the same legacy. Exactly. Yeah.
It can't end with you.
Part of a chain.
Yeah. Continue the chain.
Yeah.
I think I bring that up just because, I don't know, I'm such a nerd when it comes to words. I think words are so important. Names are so important. And when we hear the term legacy, oftentimes we're thinking oh, what my grandma's going to leave behind, right? Is it the house? Is it what's in the bank deposit box? Is it the jewelry, right? But in reality, right, if we really take away those monetary, tangible things that we associate with purpose and life often, right? I don't say that to be rude or diminishing of things that we value. But I love our brains and your world. Legacy to us is really how do we continue to influence that passion and that purpose and that impact that we've done during our time here and not let it end with us, right?
That's right. And you make a great point, because purpose often gets, or I've often seen it in a lot of the folks that I work with, gets confused with fate
Mm,
and or destiny, which is basically close to purpose. And this is a whole, could be 2 hours just on that subject alone. But purpose is very proactive. It's very much about igniting, for me, about igniting my passion and what my innate uniqueness and talents are. And each one of us has that. The
mhm.
issue is, can you see it? And can you
Yeah,
celebrate it? And can you bring it out into the world?
right. Absolutely. Okay, so I want to do a little fun exercise, and listeners know we're going here. So I have a magical reverse crystal ball who helps me go back into time, and I get to see 5-year-old, 10-year-old, or 15-year-old somewhere in those windows. John, what am I seeing, hearing? What are you doing? What are we, what are we watching on our reverse crystal ball of you?
Uh, Interestingly enough, starting in the 5-year-old, we'll move quickly. A passion for studying
Oh,
ancient mythology and cultures. My
interesting.
mother didn't read the normal, kids' books to me. She was reading Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology, and I just completely couldn't wait till it was time for story time, when I got to listen to these stories. And so at a very young age, I dove into that world. And as I got older, into high school, I started writing papers on Egyptology. I interviewed the first people that went into the Great Pyramid to scan and see if there was any secret chambers. It was a Nobel Prize physicist.
Wow.
Yeah, it was Louis Alvarez, who was featured in Oppenheimer, actually. He was
Oh my
part
God.
of that.
And this
So
was when you were like 10,
no, this was when I was more like 15 now. I'm
but
moving quickly.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
The parallel path was music for me. I
Oh,
started I started in music. I became a drummer. I was always very fidgety, and the nuns would always be hitting me with the eraser, saying, "Stop fidgeting." And my parents finally surrendered and gave me a drum set, and that moved my passion and talents into that. And then my entrepreneurial thing started also about that same time, about 14 years old. I didn't get a high allowance, so in order to make money, I had to create businesses. So I created, oh, you know what? I could teach drums to the
yeah.
other kids in the grammar school that I was just in. So I started doing that, and basically I've been in a commissionable or a non-salary job my entire life. I've been creating things and moving in and out of that world. So
Yeah, which it's
I don't
it's
want to
very
bore you with all the other details, but that's the
no,
basic jump.
no, not a bore, but I do know our audience is used to like short snippets of these episodes. So it's funny because like we go
Mhm.
so deep on the show, but at the same time, it's like, how do you go deep, but in a nutshell? And
Mhm.
I already have this like, so we have multiple segments of the show. We have our leaders on center stage, which is what we're doing today. And then we also have our experts on center stage. And I have a sneaky suspicion that we might need to have John back because I think there's a little bit more tangible, tactile stuff, which is what those expert episodes
Oh yeah.
tend to bring out. And I have this sneaky suspicion that I selfishly am going to want to have you back just so I can learn. But well, yeah, we'll talk about that. So
You can
I
learn about my epic successes and my biblical level failures all at the same
oh, amen to that. Amen to owning that. That is amazing. That is how we all should really look at success and
Yeah.
failure.
Mhm.
Amen to that. Can't say that enough. Okay, so love this picture, this reverse crystal ball of seeing you just gosh, innately honoring that entrepreneurial spirit. How has that influenced what you're doing today with the Alchemy Coaching Institute, and what values, like how has it influenced? Clearly, there's some beliefs and values that you have strung and evolved probably over time from that 14-year-old drumming instructor
Mhm.
into what you're doing with the Alchemy Coaching Institute. I'm kind of curious, what values and beliefs have you bled from those early years into now?
Uh, Probably the biggest one for me is two things: finding my own voice. This was a piece that I've struggled with most of my life. Even though I was very successful in all these things, there was a part of me that said, my voice isn't important. So I kept in the shadow. So I was doing a lot of these things without really believing in myself fully, so to speak. Not to go too deep there. But I started working on things using the alchemy, which we'll talk about later, and working to really be authentic and being trusting of what I had to say was important and was serving. And so that's how I moved into the Alchemy Coaching Institute, by blending all kinds of different modalities. So I don't know if you want me to go into that now or speak more about.
No, yeah, that's well, we'll just go. I have a, alchemy is one of those words where we've heard it, but like we're like, what does that really mean? Right. And I want to touch on really quickly, not just what is the word alchemy in a definition sense, but for you, it's not just something you've created. This is an actual historical past, like is it a what's the word I want? Theology.
Physical science, like, or?
It's a belief. It's a whole belief system, right? And it goes back into time for a long time. So of course you know better than me. But yes, share a little bit about what is alchemy and how did you land and focus like your whole career into that specific niche?
So as I explained, I was following this mythology and this ancient history. I've been all over the world. I've studied these cultures. I've been immersed in them. And throughout the entire time, alchemy has been present, as far as I've been seeing these very unusual images. If anybody has looked at actual alchemical images, they're very bizarre. It's like, what is that? A lion's eating the sun, and there's a king swimming in this river, and it's like, what is that all about? It's just was bizarre, and I was fascinated by it. And alchemy is a word that's used kind of loosely all over, but I know there was an actual science and belief system that was it was more of not a belief system, a philosophy.
Philosophy, that was the word I was looking for.
It was a philosophy, it was a science, and it kind of merged. It was the merging of what we now know as psychology, but that word was not known back then. Chemistry, biology, physics were all enmeshed in it, because there's a medical piece, there's astronomy, there's physics, all incorporated in that. And then at the same time, there is a connection to a spiritual piece in there. So it was working on a physical plane, the psychological, emotional plane, and physical plane all at the same time. Then in a nutshell, those things all split out in around the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century. So Carl Jung split out into modern psychology. All the quantum physics that we're doing today has basically come full circle to what alchemy is. A lot of the new things that are being found are what alchemists were already working with. And then the spiritual component was always there, but it's not really merged in today's scientific community. It is to some extent, more so in quantum physics than anything else from what I see.
Yeah.
So it was all one at one point, from, as you said, from millennia back, ancient Egypt, all the way through to the Middle Ages to now. It's a whole thing. And again, you can go to one of our webinars if you want to learn more about it, but it's an actual real thing. It's not some...
It's not just a term that somebody's using because it's like
not just
cool
a term. Oh, we're making alchemy something, and they're using terms because they don't know what the real history is. So there's an actual alchemy guild, believe it or not. So anyway,
and you're
so that merged.
You're certified in that, right? Through that guild. There's a certification you hold.
There's a certification, and I'm the only instructor in the guild right now. And there's a whole nother thing around that we're moving into another new foundation that we're putting together in that universe as well. So how does that pertain to the entrepreneurial world and business world? Well, by working with these modalities, it enabled me to really find my purpose, as you were talking about, to celebrate that part of my purpose / destiny, and then to give me, and here's where it really matters, real world tools that I can apply in life. If I'm getting out of my car and I'm going to a meeting and I need a little bit of something to go into that meeting, I have a tool set for that based on the alchemical modalities. So it's not just some esoteric science that, is arcane. It's very practical, approachable, real world tool sets. And that's what I teach. And that's what I coach with. And it's very, very effective.
And I want to dive into, I'm just like such a nerd. I was so excited to get to talk to you about this. So we don't always talk about my world too much, but Vim, we do branding. And so the V in Vim actually stands for visual, because we are such visual creatures, right? We eat with our eyes, we judge books by covers, even though we're literally told not to. And our brain, not us, our brain makes micro judgments on businesses, people, places, from what we see, right? What we see, feel, and hear, all of that. We're such visual creatures. Whether your learning style isn't visual or not, innately, we just are visual creatures. And so what I love about what I've learned so far from you is, and what I've learned of alchemy very, 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 very briefly, is that there's such of a visual component to it. So I wanted to geek out a little bit about, like, I know we're limited on this short episode, but can you kind of share a little bit about how impactful that is?
Yes. So excellent question, by the way. And one of the highest tenets in alchemy is imagination. And imagination gets sidelined a lot, or less than sometimes, where imagination, I mean, nothing that the technology we're talking about wouldn't have happened without imagination. It just wouldn't. Nothing, I mean, anything that we're seeing today happened because someone has imagined it and then realized how to put it into the physical world. That's essentially alchemy.
Yeah.
That's being unconscious about it, but that is alchemy. And so visual is very critical. And why? Because you probably know this more than anyone, is because a picture is worth what? How many words? Thank you. And so when I can pull up a visual image of something, this is part of that tool set I was talking about now. That visual will evoke an emotional charge, and that emotional charge will adjust a behavior. So in a nutshell, that's how all that's tied together. And by the way, when we talk visual, I'm not talking about for sighted folks only. Yeah. Because the visual is something that's done within the imagination and doesn't need, you don't have to be a sighted individual. So it can apply across the whole range. So I do use a lot of visuals in the work, because that's where, now come full circle, all those odd images I was talking about, they're all what's called archetypical images. And archetypes are things that live in what's called, I'll just say, the human DNA, without going into a psychological term. But it lives within us. It evokes a memory of a similar experience that many folks have. And there are some that are different in the Eastern cultures and some in the Western. And we can use both depending on the background.
Oh, wow. I love that you touched on, when we say visuals, it doesn't have to just be, because one, I think some people might go to like those ink blogs, right? They're like, oh, does he use ink blogs? Right. And like, that's something that's printed. And I'm not saying those are bad. I'm just saying, like, that's what I think so many people who think about mental psychology, some of this world, we think visuals, we kind of have that preconceived idea that that's what we mean. But I love that you touch on, even if we're not physically seeing something with our eyes, if we're unable to see or can see, think about when you read a book, right? As you read a book, you start the story and you learn of your main character, Emily, right? And immediately, I just said Emily, every listener, and you, John, we just pictured Emily. but I've told you nothing about Emily.
That's right.
And then as I go on and I tell you that Emily is a farmer's daughter, right now, all of a sudden, Emily's starting to shape, shift, and build. Right now, all of a sudden, I tell you she's the most adorable, freckled, redheaded girl who loves, she is a rebel and she will not wear a skirt. Now, what have you all been doing as I've been talking? You have been visualizing.
That's right.
Right. And I'm not saying this is part of alchemy. I'm just saying we as humans innately start building these visuals as we're talking and listening and reading things. And so super powerful. I told you, I warned you, I was going to geek out about the visuals. I'm so excited about it.
It's a critical piece.
Yeah. So then how do you utilize alchemy, the visuals, and how have you really kind of niched down this lane to supporting through the Alchemy Coaching Institute? And correct me if I'm wrong, but you really lean into the entrepreneurial and business world, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. How have you kind of blend these modalities into that specific area?
What I found is there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of coaches out there. And
True.
they're all, but I'd say many of them are excellent. They're really good and a lot of them have their own niches. And a lot of them have amazing systems that they coach with. So where I come in is between the person, the actual person that they may not know exists within them, and that the beginning of that system. There's a gap there a lot of times. And that's the gap that I can fill with alchemy, because it goes to all these things you were talking about, Emily, a few minutes ago, and how we imagine that. But what if you can use that technology and take a look at yourself on a much deeper level, and then take those, even if I might be super successful, there's always something there that I find that can be grown and expanded on. So what if you can take that technology and bring that farther out into the world, and then again create the life that you want? I don't know what that life is, only you do, and I can help facilitate so that you can move into that. That's the beauty.
I'm literally getting teary-eyed because that is such an emotional hit for me, because I speak so much about introspection. And as you saw, and as we did with you, right? This like reverse, crystal ball, and going back to some of our younger selves, like that journey of filling this gap that we once experienced and we know is in us, right? It's in our head, heart, and gut. We have it there, but we often don't have the tools or support person, or even understanding that we can bridge the gap between that.
Right.
And then as creatives, and I say creatives, and I know a lot of you are thinking like, paintbrush and a canvas, but to me, creatives, I truly believe, and John, you can correct me if you think differently, but I truly believe every single one of us is a creative.
That's
it's
right.
just a medium that we associate our creativity with. And if I would imagine like this alchemy, to me, why it gets me emotional is it helps people find that creativity.
Right.
Get away from this idea of I need a paintbrush. I'm not creative because I'm not good at painting, right?
Yeah. That's right. Because each of us has our own unique purpose while we're here. And sometimes it may seem obvious, but there may be more to it. And once you start connecting, and this is where the gold analogy and alchemy comes in. Once you really tie into that piece and work with it, then there's all kinds of possibilities. And it's not just business, by the way. This impacts you as a human, whether it's in relationship with friends, or in an intimate relationship, or in community. It impacts all of that. It's not just one thing. It's not just, how can I make more money? That all that stuff is a byproduct of it.
Yeah.
That's not the real reason that I do this work,
For sure.
and for the individual.
Yeah. Well, tell me, I want to respect your time. I respect our listeners.
Mhm.
Tell me kind of like really like the specifics of what Alchemy Coaching Institute can offer and who it's for, and how, and then what's like the easiest way to get into your world.
Sure. Um, I do lean it towards the business entrepreneurial world, and it really is. I actually have worked with two amazing artists. I mean, amazing artists. So it's not specifically, I've worked with vets, I've worked with several, so it's not specifically, I basically tailor the work towards, again, the individual and what their end goal is, the life that
Mhm.
they want to create, what that is. And I help them bridge that gap. And it's called, alchemy is called the magnum opus, which translates into the great work, because it's not something that's a quick fix that I give you and then off you go. It's not like, it's not
Yeah.
an excitement seminar and then you leave and then, 5 days later it's all gone because the excitement was hot and now it's like, oh, I'm back to the mundane world. No, I'm giving
Mhm.
you things that you can use all the time. And it's not indefinite. It's not like, well, sign up for 12 years and you'll get, no, it could be 3 sessions. It could be 12. Who knows? It's all up to, how it goes. So it's really personally tailored towards, again, creating that life. And if it's an entrepreneurial life, great. If it's an artist life, great. If it's just, I want to be a better in my relationship, great. Whatever it might be, these modalities work in all of those arenas. Um, Best way to get a hold of me or to look at what I do in a deeper way is to go to my website, alchemycoachinginstitute.com. I'm sure it'll be listed there. It's a mouthful. I barely remember it, so I don't expect you guys to. So go
Yeah, we'll
there,
put
click
it in
the
the
link.
show link, the show
Okay,
notes
good.
for sure. Yeah.
Alchemy.
Yeah,
And you'll,
alchemycoachinginstitute.com, probably
yeah.
/blog, right? I don't know for sure. Just click the link, guys.
Well, it's easy to navigate because I'm pretty much of a techno backwards person when it comes to websites. So I had somebody that knows what they're doing. So it's easy to navigate. Please read the blogs or read the blogs that are of interest to you. There's a lot of content on there and they're in bite-sized pieces. Um, so they're easy to choose a topic that might be of interest, and you'll kind of see how alchemy weaves its way through all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way to get into the world. And you'll read a little bit more about me. My contact information is there if you want to reach out. And I'd love to offer a 15-20 minute, just no charge session. Just, if this is at all, if it calls you, and that's always the way I do this. I don't like to do sales pitches. It's not about that. You'll know if it calls to you. And if it does,
Mhm.
set up a time with me. We'll chat about it. If it makes sense, great. If it doesn't, then hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about yourself and where to go.
Yeah. I appreciate that so much. Hey, guys, I know I said this on a previous show, but the gift of time is truly a gift. So when we have guests on the show, which we've had 99, which we've had so many amazing givers who have offered their time. And so in addition to those resources that John and his team has invested in and making them readily and freely available from the alchemycoachinginstitute.com, also that free offer, that complimentary time with John, please, if you're listening to this and you're getting that sense that this is important or intriguing, and you want to continue to bleed passion and purpose throughout your life and business, take the gift of John's time, because that's such a brilliant and selfless gift that John is offering. So please go to the show notes, check out the website, get in touch with John, and do that. Don't just listen to these passively. Be an active member in your growth, and do that through the amazing people showing up on our show. Like, please,
Yeah,
or
I'm
share.
here. I'm here to support you. One
Yeah,
more point, if I may.
please.
Uh,
Yes.
something really occurred to me, especially when you were talking about alchemy and how it pertains today, more than ever, with AI breaking into what we're doing. This is really critical to get in touch with who you are. because AI will never get in touch with that, ever.
Yeah.
And AI can create all kinds of things, but it can't create you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the one that's moving your life forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
That's a huge, huge important thing to be aware of. You know, this deep stuff that I know my listeners don't find it wonky because they're here, but I know a lot of people do this. They think this deep stuff is just not necessary. But guys, we are coming up against this AI that is so not able right now to be as deep as we go on this show and as John is helping you find. So yeah, just know. I share this quote a lot and it will reinforce what we're talking about, is that in the past, jobs were about muscles. Now they're about brains. In the future, they'll be about heart. And when we are combating AI, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but right, when that's what we're up against, how do you bring out your heart? Right. And it starts with you finding that, right? Working through it. So I have one last question to wrap us up. What is next for the Alchemy Coaching Institute brand?
what's next is we're building out an affiliate program with lots of other folks. We're building out more of an alchemical resource center for folks that want to deal more with that. And we're building a faculty of world-class instructors, not just in alchemy, but in art, in food industries, in philosophies and history. I mean, it's going to be like the modern day. This is how grandiose I'm thinking. It's going to be basically the modern day version of the Alexandrian Library. And there'll be courses, webinars. The website's almost done for that. Some of the coursework's already ready. So this is a reality. It's not just, wow, what if I could do this? No, it's happening.
It's next. It's coming.
It's next. And it's all part of this one network.
That's
so
amazing.
yes, I'll close with this too. What you just said is critical, and the future is here. I mean, most of the work in alchemy is the bridge, or what the Egyptians call the intelligence of the heart. That's the merging. That's the balance of the intellect, the brain, and the heart.
Yeah.
And those two really need to be conjoined. And when they are, all kinds of magic can happen. And I'll be quiet now.
No, I love it. I usually ad lib to that quote, which is not mine. That is Manoush Shafiq. She is the Columbia University president. I usually add at the end of that quote is that I believe that when she said it, which was 2017, and now, that the future is now, right? We are in the heart of business. That is, I believe, you probably believe, and I know we're going on too long, but I believe, and I bet we share this belief, that even in the 1700s, 1600s, I believe that heart was always business. We lost that along the way. It wasn't this buildup. We just got lost from it, right? The idea, our 1950s idea that there's no place for emotion in business, right? We just lost it. It wasn't that it wasn't there. We just lost it. And so bringing it back home, utilizing alchemy, these these older historical teachings and philosophies to bring it back to where we need to be. All right. I could go on and on with you, John. Obviously, listeners, just keep an eye out on what we have coming up on the pipeline, because unless John tells me no, I have a sneaky suspicion that we will have him back. But thank you. Thank you so much for being here, John.
Take care.
All right, guys. Until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Passion on Purpose podcast. I truly hope you got a lot of value out of this episode. So if you did, please rate, review, and share. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, whether a leader or an expert, please go to getvim.com/podcast and you will find our application page, or reach out to me directly and I can give you more information.